The objective of this video is to give an introduction to coding. This is primarily for an online class I teach called Coding 1A, but I suppose it applies to anyone who is at the very beginning of their coding education, no matter what age. And for the students in this particular course, most of them have never taken a hardware or electronics class before, which I would highly suggest you do before learning to program. But in the case that you didn't, and you're in this class, I want to be as helpful as possible. So this video right here is going to kind of fill in some gaps, I think. And I just want you to know, I don't like this term coding because I feel like most people use it incorrectly. Coding to me is a reference to encoding. So this means working with the ones and zeros, like the ASCII encoding, and how those ones and zeros translate into something. But if you don't know anything about that, and you're learning JavaScript or Python, I think this video is going to be helpful because when you learn these languages, you're learning how to program. So I wish this class was called Programming 1A. So what is it you're doing when you're learning programming? Well, I feel like you're becoming a sorcerer or sorceress. You're learning these magic words to say or type, and when put into a combination, some crazy things can happen. You can make games and websites, all because you're telling the computer what to do with data. In the beginning, the data is just numbers and strings, so it might not feel very impressive when you create a little calculator or you create something that outputs a text, but the more sophisticated commands you learn and ways to manipulate data, all this, put in the right combinations, will give you some crazy power to do whatever your imagination and your skill level will allow. Nowadays, people talk about machine learning and artificial intelligence. This stuff is created by programmers. If you never take another programming class after this one, that's still great because these basics you're about to learn will help you for the rest of your life. One of the most important things to know, because it's always useful, to fix a problem with a computer or a problem with a program, you should turn it off and turn it back on again. When you learn about variables, maybe that is the reason that turning something off or shutting it down is the correct thing to do, because you're resetting all those variables, you're trying again, and hopefully things work in the chain reaction that they're supposed to. If this just sounds crazy to you, that's okay, because I'll explain more later. But for now, you should know, I feel like it took 5 years of hardcore studying before I even came up with something slightly impressive. People ask me how I learned this stuff, and I think it didn't come natural. I really struggled. I took this really long journey. The road was bumpy, but through perseverance, each day with each new bit of knowledge, you wake up feeling a bit better than the day before. So you're going to look at stuff that's crazy. Just try to get one thing each time, and those things will add up, and in no time you'll be reading code like a pro. And you should know in this class and with my teaching style, I really emphasize reading code. The writing is not so impressive. At this level, in the beginning level. When you learn English in kindergarten, you're spending a lot more time learning to read before the teacher is asking you to write essays or paragraphs or whatever. You do a little, don't get me wrong. That's going to be similar to my teaching style with coding and programming. It's also my style to treat this a bit like a sport and to encourage you to train and study the game just like a sport. That way you could get better. So what do people in sports do to become better at that sport? Well, there's a lot of things. So here I'm going to say the game is coding. And being part of a team and playing a game is one of the greatest rewards I've ever experienced in life. And very often, if you get hired by a company to be a programmer, you'll be working in a team as well. So you can pause here and read these if you want to digest my little analogy here. So let's wrap this video up by just looking at some of those magic words I talked about. Your whole job is to learn these and then create some yourself. So the first one is print. When you say print, the computer will do it. If you put in a number here and run it, it prints that number. If you do some math and run it, it'll print the result. Or you can print words that you make up and just put into the quotes. And in this scenario, think about the output being the computer screen if somebody was to run this one-line program here. But the part that you name yourself, like you come up with these names, so when they look weird like this, that's because the programmer just invented the word. Here I put I made this up. This is a variable, so I'm assigning it the number 3. So when I print that variable, right, no quotes, and it's not purple, it'll print the number 3, just like it would if I put a 3 right there. So right now, you might just be completely unimpressed. But remember what stage you're at. If you're in this Coding 1A class, we're at the stage where we're trying to get you to catch a ball and hopefully throw it yourself. So you're going to play around with tiny pieces of data in the hopes of one day you'll be working with massive amounts of data in order to create apps or websites or games, etc. Now, one more piece of advice, and this is especially for the Coding 1A students. Be patient with some of the units. You'll be reading about tech rather than creating it. I know that might be frustrating, but it's okay. Knowledge is power. You never know when you'll stumble upon an overlapping concept. At one point, you'll be reading about Francis Bacon in 1605. Just accept this tangential knowledge. Trust me, you'll want to be as intelligent as you can to survive in this day and age. The more you know, the more employable you are. So, with all that said, good luck beginning this journey. It will be rough. I'm not even going to lie about that, but people like myself will be here for you. If you're not even in the class, you can leave comments here on YouTube. You can send me a tweet at DebtWielder. Let me help you along this rough journey because I'm really passionate about that. If it wasn't for a few teachers and a coach, my life, I don't know where I'd be today. So that's my motivation. Let me finish by saying thank you for taking this class and being willing to learn.